climb inside. I'm so jealous. I'm like just watching her go inside and
how does she get to climb inside?
Because of her research on the because that one it's like a model of what so they get to
look at the time.
Do analysis, the thing analysis, and it's like very jealous.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really cool.
It's on the presentation. It's pretty cool.
Okay, cool. That's good. That's really good. This classroom, I've never been in this one before. It's super steep, right?
I know. It's very,
I don't think I'd want to teach here. You have to carefully throw your head back to see. And I'm pretty sure I could not see the students at the top.
At the very
it's too steep, right? See the little heads poking up at most.
It's very steep. And the seats also are very old school.
Oh yeah, this thing, yeah. No, we usually have, yeah. I've never used it.
It's like, how do you use it?
Yeah, I guess it's the only way I have to write it. I use my tablet, so I don't know, but yeah, I guess that's the only other way to write notes, except for on the chalkboard.
Hey, we're gonna get a picture.
Oh yeah.
But I was waiting for Aria to come down.
Yeah.
She's so busy.
So there's gonna be another speaker.
Yeah, Odalis told me, so I have an alarm on mine.
Okay, will be here also.
I was like, I just showed up yesterday, or this morning.
You guys, students take care of everything.
So every now and again, I'm like, how's it going? Yeah, so I like coming back to the photos.
I was just gonna try to pass the torch.
I didn't see anyone pass the torch out. So that I don't know if I'm being keep coming back. Yeah, but then I was like, I saw the company's here, and I was like, okay. And if I use I might have been able to.
I don't want to butcher your name, so it's Roxanne, Arellano. Thank you.
So we'll see if we'll.
Hold on. Hello. Can you hear me?
And that's good.
Alright, speak to my thank you.
Where are you? Pacific Gas. Yeah, and so I'm working in Santa Monica. Yeah, the summer and you're really good.
So how do you advertise the event?
We advertise the event through multiple ways. Ask people know about it and we send them emails. We usually go with our outreach to our schools, so we go through like the languages and we tell them about it. During our other events, we tell them about it. Because we have other events like Mesa Day, so when they come, we tell them about it. Anytime we interact with students, we tell them about word of mouth, emails, and just to professors and career fairs. I'm not in charge of it. I know that's how they tell us to do it. I don't know if they're actually doing it. So I'm just texting the Bible, so I don't work with it. Sorry. Once Aria comes down to take a picture with you guys, you can ask her his guitar.
Let me go pull her. Let me go get her.
So you nervous about speaking?
I always get a little nervous, and then once I start talking about it,
Makes sense.
maybe it's perfect. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so we're having a little bit of issues with direct people and all that. We're supposed to start at 10:15. Do you think it's okay, cool. We want you to present it.
No worries. I'm here all day.
Okay, cool. So we'll wait until 10:30. That way most of the slots will be filled up by then. That works. Would you post for a picture? Oh, yeah. Why don't I get on the outside? No, you guys are out running.
Take a picture. We're going to tell you from JPL. Want to leave the science student here? All right.
I need a picture with Lynn too.
Yeah, well, I'll take one later. Hola, Roxana. Roxanne. On. Naomi. Yeah, she's just here. Yeah, she's at the beginning. There's a lot of yeah.
No, they're really cool. Is your microphone right now? There's a lot of feedback in the live streaming room.
Wait. I didn't like how introducing them. I just didn't
Yeah, I think that's just taking a while too. It just means that and then we probably should have like arrows out or something. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. No, everyone else marked in for like 24. But so, it should be fine. Normally, but it's quite early and they're not super. Yeah, I mean it can be, but it's not. So I can't hold it.
Would you mind putting this on the microphone? I don't know what it is. Oh, that's my. Oh, got it. I was very confused. I was like, I have no idea what this is for. I still don't know what it's for. That means I take it off when I sneeze, right? I was like, what is it? What?
Yeah, especially because like her mic's like right here, right?
I totally forgot that was there, so I was like, was it when
No, so we're at quarters. So getting into it. So it's like we're halfway through this week 5 on a 10 in spring weather. So that means we don't start from fall to the end. And all the semester.
I know it's a bit of stalking on LinkedIn, but
He's gonna say your background a little bit.
yeah, if you don't mind.
He's gonna go over her
So that's at the University of Texas, right? And then you already have your master's or your
No, I
transferring?
started and then I'm going to switch my degree. So
Okay.
I
So
did
we mentioned mentors.
We don't have to talk about degrees. Just talk about different centers.
I'll just mention what you told me. I'm like, you got electrical engineering.
and then I'll go into
All right. Wait, don't take off the fuzzy thing. No, we speak into the fuzzy thing. No, we don't take it off. He said he hears our whole conversation. So you probably listen to us right now.
do it flat. Let's do it flat.
This is 13. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Arya Choi. I am one of the Society of Women Engineers outreach chairs. And my name is Nikita Haridas. I'm also co-outreach chair for SWE. So this is Bourns Engineering Day. We hope you're having a lot of fun. We helped organize everything. So if you have any questions or anything, just come talk to us. And right now, Alex is going to introduce the guest speaker.
All right. Guys, give these people a round of applause. They did a lot of work to help you guys promote this event. If you guys see them around, thank them. They put countless of hours in. Thank the Society of Women Engineers, because without them, we would not have this event for you guys. So I'm here to introduce Roxanne Arellano. She's been in aerospace for more than 10 years, working with NASA. She's worked at multiple sites, including Houston, where they work with the astronauts, the Armstrong Center in California, and JPL, right here in Pasadena, an hour away. She's gonna talk about her engineering career life, and I hope you guys enjoy. There she is.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're being inspired today by engineering. And I want to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got into engineering and all the fun stuff that I've been able to be part of. All right, so this is where my journey starts. I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. I speak both Spanish and English, and when I was your age, I was very curious about how things worked. I was curious about everything. I was curious about mountains, I was curious about the television. I wanted to know how things work, and I enjoy puzzles because when you have puzzles and they're all broken up into different pieces, but once you come and you put it together, you get a beautiful picture. So this is where I'm from, right in this west edge of Texas. And here, this is the downtown, and right across, there's the Rio Grande. This is Mexico. So speaking Spanish was absolutely necessary growing up in El Paso. All right, so I enjoyed math and science when I was in school. I had to work really hard because although I enjoyed it, it was challenging. And it has always been challenging, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done. I just had to spend a little bit more time trying to understand the concepts. When I graduated from high school, I knew that I wanted to work for NASA. I actually always knew I wanted to work for NASA because I watched a movie about space. I watched Apollo 13. And that movie just inspired me to try to understand and try to work with a team of engineers or a team of scientists to try to figure something out, something that's difficult, and it goes back to solving problems. So that was my main inspiration, and I knew that I had to work really hard in my math, science, writing, because we write a lot also, and I went to the University of Texas at El Paso, and this is the school, here's the mountains, and this is the campus. All right, so when I was in school, I knew, again, that I wanted to work for NASA, but I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I started talking to my professors. I started talking to people that would come to events like this, like today. I would try to figure out how can I get to NASA? And they all told me the same thing. You have to work hard, you have to stay involved, and you have to maintain your inspiration because you absolutely need that to try to do amazing things, right? Go work for NASA. So when I was in my second year of school, I got the opportunity to work for the NASA Armstrong Research Center here in California. So it's about 2 to 3 hours away from here. And I got to work on aircraft. And these aren't just any types of aircrafts. These are fighter jets. So they go really, really fast. And what I got to do there is I got to work on an aircraft that bends its wings. So if you think of a bird, right, how they fly and how they can maneuver because they bend their wings. Well, this aircraft, it actually has small little pockets where it can aerodynamically change when it's flying. And again, these are flying very, very fast, so it's not going to be a big change and all of a sudden turn from one direction to another, but this is research that they're trying to understand the use of better materials and different types of materials at very, very high speeds for future human space exploration. All right, here is another aircraft I got to work on. So see this red little electronics instrument? So we got to take a lot of data when the aircraft is flying at very high speeds. We're trying to understand how we can use the existing satellite system that we have to try to get this data, because before you had to have this big antenna and you had to track the aircraft. So this way, this new research allowed us to try to use like the GPS to try to figure out how we can track the aircraft to get our data fast. And I'll talk a little bit about more. We used a satellite system called TDRS, which you'll hear about it a little bit more. All right, so that was while I was in school. This is when I graduated from undergrad as an electrical and computer engineer in 2006, so some time ago. And now, so after I graduated, that's when my NASA journey really began. So I moved from El Paso, Texas to Houston. So it's on the other side. It's like 14 hours away. So it's not close because Texas is such a big state. And I went to go work. I decided to work for Lockheed Martin that was building the spacecraft for Moon, Mars, and beyond for NASA at the Johnson Space Center. And this is a picture of the actual spacecraft. Here's the windows. You can see the windows where the astronauts would actually have a view during their flight. And these are the solar arrays that power the spacecraft. All right, so this is one of the testing. This is at New Mexico when we were doing our first flight test. So this is at the very beginning in 2010. And this is where they're trying to lift up the spacecraft and put it on top of its test fixture. All right, so pad abort 1 happened in May 6th. I got to test the actual spacecraft from end to end. So we're talking about this here. So this is the actual capsule, and this is the launch abort. And what that does is if something happens to the rocket downstream, the big launch vehicle, you want to get the spacecraft out of any danger so that the astronauts can, you're gonna see right now in the video, can eject and land safely on the water. So I'm gonna show you a quick demonstration of what I got to see in person. So this is in New Mexico, very close to where I'm from, El Paso, so it was very nice. I could stay home with my parents and then go to work, drive over to New Mexico and get to see our first testing. So by this time, I had already performed my testing on the spacecraft. This is the launch abort system, and they are actually lifting the launch abort system. Right here, they're getting the engines ready, making sure everything's okay, ready to fly for the test demonstration. Test demonstration. There you go, separation. So that's when the astronauts come back down to Earth and land in the water.
3, 2, 1, launch.
So in person, this was amazing. So these are the fun things that you get to separate, because become an engineer and different
Reorientation
types
started.
of
3,
jobs and different types of
1, launch.
projects complete. So to me, this was a very, very most memorable project I got to work on.
Reorientation started. Last jettison. FBC jettison.
And those are the biggest parachutes that we use to slow down the vehicle as it's coming down. And the spacecraft landed safely. So before we, and those have astronauts go on spacecraft and use it. We use to slow down the vehicle as it's so it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. The spacecraft landed safely. So I was in one of these trailers on spacecraft during it, so very memorable. All right, so in space, in the aerospace industry, sometimes there are situations where some of the project's mission has to be de-scoped. So I decided to move to California and try to work at a different, not in human space. I went to go work for the Boeing satellite systems. And so I went from Houston and I moved over to LA. That was a big change. So on the right side, this is TDRS. I got to work on TDRS. TDRS, remember, it was a satellite that was going to track the aircraft. So I find myself working for NASA again. When I decided to leave human space, I'm back working at NASA, at Boeing, trying to keep NASA, trying to do all its science and its research that it does with the satellite system, as well as the research that I had been working on years ago. So that was a lot of fun. All right, so this is one of the satellites that I got to work on where I was a lead power engineer. So these are the two satellites. They're identical, and this is the spacecraft with the wings out. This is basically the view of the spacecraft when it's up orbiting Earth. So here you could see the solar arrays, and here you could see this really, really big antenna. But before it goes onto the launch vehicle, we have to make sure that it's folded and it's ready to go. So here, I'm right here holding the letter E, and this was our big delivery to the customer where we're done, we're ready to go. And right now, one of the satellites is orbiting Earth. The other one did not make it, but that's why we made two. But needless to say, the spacecraft is working. It has been operating for the last 2 years. And yes, I was able to go they hoist you up to the top, make sure everything's ready to go, and you get to do all this different fun stuff that sometimes you think engineering is, you're sitting at your desk. But again, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of different things you can do. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit. So that was my previous work that I had been doing. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I'm doing today. But before we do that, we're going to have a fun space quiz. I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to raise your hand if you think the letter A, B, C, or D is the answer. All right. Which is the biggest planet in the solar system? Raise your hand if you think it's letter A, Saturn. Raise your hand if you think it's B, Earth. Raise your hand if you think it's C, Jupiter. All right. Raise your hand if it's D, Mars. All right. So let's see. The answer is. Give you a hint. It has a big giant red spot in it. Jupiter. Yes. Jupiter is our largest planet in our solar system. It's a giant gas planet, so its atmosphere is made up of helium and mostly hydrogen, just like our sun. And basically, it's so big that all of the planets in our solar system can actually fit inside the planet itself. In fact, 1,000 Earths can fit inside of Jupiter, so it's a really, really big planet. Jupiter actually has 3 rings. So Saturn has rings, right? And then we could see them. So Jupiter's rings are made out of dust. So Saturn, on the other hand, are made of ice. So they're very reflective, whereas Jupiter's are dust particles. So not very reflective. They can see them, but you can't really see them when you look up with your telescope. Just in case you didn't know, Jupiter has rings. Also, here is the Great Red Spot. It's a big storm. It's actually bigger than Earth. It's like the diameter of 2 Earths put together, and it has been going on for about 300 years. And if you look at photos from 10 years ago, you can see that it's shrinking. It's shrinking with time. So this would be very interesting, once, what's going to happen later when this big red spot, maybe perhaps it goes away, maybe another one comes in. I don't know, we'll see. But just keep an eye on that, it's very interesting. And then here you see this dark spot. This is actually a shadow of a moon called Europa. It's casting a shadow on the planet. All right, here's the great red spot. Like I said, you could put 2 Earths in there, so very large storm. All right, another question. How many moons does Jupiter have? Raise your hand if you think it's the letter A, 1 moon. Raise your hand if you think it's B, 5. 5 moons. All right. Raise your hand if you think it's C, 28. All right. Raise your hand if you think it's D, 50 or more. Wow. There's a lot of moons. 50 or more. In fact, there are 67 moons that have been there's 50 that have been confirmed and about 17 that are unconfirmed, meaning they're still making sure that it's orbiting around Jupiter and making sure that it is not just classified as something else. So it has a lot of moons. All right, so there are 4 very important moons that go around Jupiter. These are called the Galilean moons. They are named after Galileo Galilei that discovered these moons with a telescope from Earth in 1610. And these are the 4 largest moons in Jupiter. All right, so here they are. So we have Io. Io is the most actively volcanic moon. It has about 400 volcanoes that are constantly erupting. That's interesting. It's very alive. We think of it as a very alive moon. Then we have Europa. Europa is very, very special because it's very smooth. So that means that craters haven't been, craters, there's a reason why craters aren't there and there's things that are not constantly hitting the moon. Also, it's very smooth. I mean, it does have cracks and lines, which I'll talk about later, but it's a very smooth and it has ice. So that's very important. Ganymede. Ganymede is the largest moon in our entire solar system. And it's also, it's the very largest moon. Let's see if I can, it's larger than Pluto and Mercury. It's larger than 2 of our planets. Well, one of them. Callisto. So Callisto is the most heavily cratered body in the solar system. So we consider that as not very active because it means when you look at a moon and its surface is just fully cratered, it means that those craters have been there for a very, very long time. So nothing inside internally is really happening or changing the surface. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit on what I'm working on today and why I started talking about all these moons on Jupiter. All right, so this is the Europa mission. All right, so I'm going to show you a really neat video.
H2O. Jupiter's moon Europa may have twice as much, right under its icy surface. Why do scientists think so? First, a spacecraft showed us. Europa's surface is mostly made of water ice, with some salts. Second, that surface is different than a lot of others in the solar system. Right under its icy surface. You see lots of cracks and ridges, but not so many craters. First, it may be that an underground ocean causes the surface to warm and crack, changing the landscape and erasing craters. That surface is and the final lot of others in the solar system. Europa is changing magnetic field, but not so many craters conducting that. It may be that an underground ocean, a hidden saltwater ocean, would explain it, changing the landscape. A future NASA mission can tell us for sure if Europa has an ocean. That's the next step in knowing if this mysterious world has the right conditions for life. It may be that an underground ocean, a hidden saltwater ocean, would explain it, changing the landscape. A future NASA mission can tell us for sure if Europa has an ocean. That's the next step in knowing if this mysterious world has the right conditions for life. It may be that
the cracks that we see on Earth, like our plate tectonics. So what scientists believe is that there's a heat source, there is heat that is causing the ice to crack and this water to just pour out, and also giving it, you know, all the surface ridges that we see, very similar to Earth. But we have to understand what Jupiter is so far away. We, here on Earth, we have the sun, and we are close enough that, you know, if you go outside right now, it's warm. At Jupiter, it's so far away that Europa cannot be getting its heat source just from the sun. There is something warm, something that's providing that heat source. All right, so this is why Europa is very special. Here is the icy crust around the entire moon. And then there is this ocean, right, that we are gonna go and we're gonna go discover and we're gonna go find. And this is the important part. This volcanic seafloor, this is what we think has all the right minerals and all the right conditions that are suitable for microbial life. And if you see here at the core, it's warm. So what's happening is Jupiter's gravity, you know the tides here on Earth, right? How you pull in the mornings, you wake up and you can see the differences in the tides in the evening and early in the morning. Well, it's the same thing. Jupiter is so big. Remember, Europa is about the size of our moon, and it's pulling, causing these tidal waves and actually causing the center of the moon to heat up and warm up, which is then causing these cracks on the surface. And that is exactly what we're gonna go find. We want to fly by the moon, and we want to get all the data so that we have the instruments that will help us understand what is in there, what's pouring out of it, and what is it made out of. All right, so there's one crater that we know of in Europa. So we consider this very smooth, meaning that it's very new. If it was heavily cratered, like our moon, heavily cratered, those craters have not changed in, you know, in many years. That's why Europa is a lot more interesting. It does have all the ridges, but again, this is telling us this is very similar to the cracks and plate tectonics that we have here on Earth. Here is a little view of the actual spacecraft. This here is the big antenna that points down to Earth. That's going to give us all the information. It's going to fly by Jupiter, and then it's going to go around Europa. So it's going to go around Jupiter. We're going to get information, data from Jupiter, and then it's going to fly by very close to the moon to get all the neat data that we want our scientists to look at. All right, so what is it that I do, right? Well, I work on Europa, but what specifically do I do? I'm a power systems engineer, so I'm in charge of making sure that we design the appropriate power subsystem to make sure that this mission is successful from the beginning and launches to the very end of its life. So it's going to need a power source, right? So as an example, here on Earth, we have a power plant that converts we have natural gas that, converts, or, we have the different types of power sources that are then converted into electricity, which are then distributed to your house, and then in your house you have a switch and the light magically comes up, right? Not so much. But you can think of that as what I do on the spacecraft. And the way that I do that, right, I need to make sure that the spacecraft has enough power, because if it doesn't have power, then it doesn't turn on at all. It will not work. Or, if you don't do it right, it's gonna break, right? All right, so a power source is anything that can provide electrical current. So what we use are solar arrays. So we have to make sure that we know how big to make the solar arrays that's going to last you for the entire mission. We also have a way to store batteries, because when you go around the planet, right, you don't have any light from the sun. You're completely covered. Like you are, we call it an eclipse. So you're in an eclipse, you have no sun, then what are you gonna do? You need to keep operating. So we have energy storage such as batteries, big batteries. And then we have the power electronics. So our power electronics is what distributes power to every single thing that needs power on the spacecraft. So it's like, the best way I can describe it is a light switch. You turn it on, you turn it off. But it's very complicated. But this is just an example of what that looks like. All right, so now I just want to leave you with this last slide, which is who can become an engineer, right? So I've had various jobs. I've had different types of jobs. I've studied electrical engineering, but I've had the opportunity to do different things, and that's the neat part about engineering, math, and science. You can study one thing, and if you start working, you decide that you like something else, you can definitely do that, because it gives you the skills to be able to think in that way. Think like an engineer, think like a scientist. And anybody can become an engineer. Girls, boys, anybody can grow up and become an engineer. You're just gonna have to work really hard. And thank you. Before I end this presentation, I have a special quote for you that I use, that I have in my office all the time, okay? You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. You know what to do, work really hard, and you're the one that will decide where to go. From Dr. Seuss. Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? I'll be here. If you have any questions, feel free to come down and come talk to me.
Can I take a picture of that saying of Dr. Seuss? Can I take a picture of that saying?
Oh, yeah.
Can I take a picture of it?
Yeah. Oh, this one? The moon? Yeah, so this is a picture. This is a picture that, let's see. Oh, I know what this is. Okay, so this is actually a picture that a spacecraft called Dawn took when it went around. Okay, look, Earth is right here. This is an asteroid. It's right here. So the spacecraft launched from Earth, and it went around and it took pictures of it. And it looks like a moon, because look at all this stuff, right? All this stuff, these are particles, and all this is hitting the actual moon and causing all these craters. It looks like a moon, but it's very similar to a moon in the sense that it gets struck by stuff everywhere. Look how busy it is. There's a lot of stuff out there.
That must be a lot of traffic.
And